Hello and welcome back to Storytime with Alex. This is a super exclusive brand new story that we're starting today because it has not even been published and I'm reading it off my laptop having been sent a copy. It is book 3 of From Allbyon to Britannia, The Last Wizard. If you want to listen to the last 2 books, we've got book 1, The Witches of Old Albion, book 2, The Last Witch of Old Albion, both of which I have already read. If you look on my YouTube channel, Alexandra Pearson, you can watch all of those there if you want to do that before you read this one. But otherwise, sit down, get comfy, and we will begin Brandy Pearson's From Allbyon to Britannia Book 3, The Last Wizard, Chapter 1, The Wizard Goes Missing. Okay, let's hope my laptop doesn't die, it's incredibly old. Where does a story begin? Where does a story end? I finished the last story around Halloween during my 2nd year at the high school when I wrote it all down and gave it to Miss P. This story seems to begin the following spring when Sebastian Jones, the last wizard of Old Albion, went missing, though it took us quite a while to realise he had gone. It was about a week before the Easter holidays at the end of Lent. Miss P had surprised everyone by going away on holiday. Now that she was no longer needed as the warden of Albury Triangle, she had decided to have what she called an adventure of her own and had gone on a cruise along the Nile. I wondered if there would be a murder that she could solve like in an Agatha Christie novel. We were going round to her cottage every day to feed Gremlin her cat and talk to him and make a fuss of him. It was Saturday morning. Dad was a bit miffed. He was supposed to have met Sebastian Jones at a pub in town the evening before, but he hadn't turned up. I was about to go and feed Gremlin, to get out of Dad's way, when the doorbell rang. It was Ruth, so we went to Miss P's together. Ruth was going to come and stay over the holidays, as her mum had an important conference in Los Angeles. She had brought over some of her stuff, but she had another more interesting reason than that. She'd had a dream that morning, and she wanted to share with Rose, but came to tell me first. Ruth's dream. There was this girl, a bit older than me, dressed in jeans and a black leather jacket, quite short black curly hair. She was sitting in a wooden chair in a shabby attic room. She looked around her and then she said, "Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope." Then it was as if she saw me for the first time. Our eyes met and I woke up. "Obi-Wan Kenobi, Star Wars," I said. I know how daft it sounds, but that's not all. I went back to sleep and had the dream again. This time she looked me in the eyes before she said it, the same thing. "Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope." I could not get back to sleep after that. What do you think it means? I have no idea. Perhaps you've watched Star Wars too many times. That's why I'm going to see Miss P. Rose told me I should tell her of any strange dreams, but I still don't like going to see her if she's not expecting me. Gremlin had realised we were there and come to be fussed. I started scratching her head. "You've been going to visit her quite often, haven't you?" Ruth was tickling Gremlin under the chin. "Is she teaching you some of her magic?" "As I'm her great-great-granddaughter, she thinks I have the makings of a witch. She says being a witch is in the blood. In Old Albion, wizards were called and witches were born. It's one of her sayings." I knew Rose was teaching her, but she didn't talk much about it. I think Rose had probably told her to keep it to herself. Having a dream like that one just seems, well, normally, weird dream, but dreaming it twice? That sounds like something else. Perhaps someone trying to make contact? I'm sure one of the witches in the stories of Old Albion sent messages out in dreams, I suggested. That's what I was thinking. But Rose is the last witch, isn't she? I'd better go and see Rose now. I said I'd be back for lunch. Mum's trying to spend some quality time with me before she goes to Los Angeles. She's feeling bad about leaving me over the Easter break. In previous years of his long life, it would have been difficult to know if Sebastian Jones was missing, because he was seldom present. Rose Cooper, the witch who lived in a secret corner of the Triangle, did not hear from him for decades at a time. Father Joe knew where he was living, because he organised all their finances and owned the flat where Sebastian now lived, which was over in Hackney. However, he would have had no idea if Sebastian was there or not. All he would be aware of was that someone was spending what he called his stipend every month, the money he lived on. But times had changed, and Sebastian Jones and my dad had become good friends. He was a good friend to all of us, and occasionally came to our house for a meal, but he got on particularly well with Dad. Once a month, when his stipend was paid into his bank account, Sebastian and my dad would meet up in a pub in town, have a few drinks, and end the evening having a curry together and talking. A lot. If he was around, Father Joe sometimes accompanied them. It gave them a chance to talk about theories of magic, religion, physics and black holes and, according to my mum, a certain amount of nonsense. Sebastian had called Dad on the Monday evening, and they agreed to meet up that Friday at 8 p.m. Dad had gone into town and waited in the pub, but Sebastian had not turned up. Dad phoned his mobile, but there was no answer. Dad phoned Father Joe, but he had no idea where Sebastian might be. The next day he came and told us that his stipend had been paid into his bank account and that he'd taken some money out on Thursday, but was not answering his mobile, his landline, or his email. We weren't worried yet. He had times of what Rose called flightiness, when he would take off somewhere and not come back for weeks, and lose his phone or throw it away. But he'd never before arranged to meet someone and failed to turn up. However, on Sunday afternoon, Father Joe came to see us with worrying news. He'd been phoned by someone called Marco. Marco, it turned out, was Sebastian's friend and kept an eye on his flat when he was away. Sebastian hadn't told him that he was going away either, but he did not answer the door, so Marco, who had a spare key, had got in that morning to find that the flat had been broken into and ransacked. Sebastian had given him clear instructions that he should never call the police if anything like this happened, but that he should phone this number. Father Joe was alarmed that this person he had never heard of had a key to Sebastian's flat. Marco sounded alarmed that the person on the other end of the phone was a priest. How much did this Marco know? Was he to be trusted? Also, there was a spell on the door of Sebastian's flat. Father Joe had words to say before the key would work. Had Sebastian told Marco the words of the spell? Did Marco know he was a wizard? And so Father Joe, Ruth and I went to see Rose that evening. She would have nothing to do with any kind of phone, and although she was now quite happy to come out and meet people, she did not like too many people visiting her at home, so Mum and Dad did not come. Father Joe told her about Sebastian, and she tutted. If he's just gone missing, I'd say it was nothing, but someone breaking into his flat. Let's see if we can find anything out. She filled a china mixing bowl with water. She'd been making cakes and had just washed it up. She placed it on a green cloth in her living room table and waited. "What are you waiting for?" I asked, intrigued. "I'm waiting for the water to grow still," she said. "Then I can stare into the depths and see farther. Some people buy crystal balls, but I think they're a waste of money. Still water will work just as well if you have the mind for it. Scrying is not magic. It's a way to still the mind and bring up what the good God gives. But magic helps to make the image clearer. Ruth, my dear, come and see how it's done." Ruth went to sit next to her, being careful not to knock the table, and I went and sat on the other side, fascinated at what Rose was going to do. When the water was still, Rose began to gaze intently into the water. Then she sang a little song under her breath and fluttered her fingers. We sat one on either side of her, hardly daring to breathe, and slowly an image appeared floating above the water. Sebastian was sitting on the balcony of a flat, many stories up, gazing out over roofs and blocks. It was as if we were behind him and were looking at what he was looking at. He seemed to be gazing at the Shard near London Bridge Station. "Is that where he is now?" Ruth whispered. "No," said Rose. "That was the last time he used his magic. He is the last wizard of old Allbyon and only wizard in Britain. His magic is very distinctive, and I can often find it in the water if I'm looking for him." "Can you tell what the spell is?" I asked. "Not really, but I can perhaps describe what the spell was about." The image shifted its point of view, looking over Sebastian's shoulder. He was reading a letter, but we could not make out the words. "The spell concerns the letter. Someone needs to go to his flat. There's something wrong. I cannot believe that he would have cast no spells from Thursday till today. There's not a whiff of his magic since." She looked extremely concerned. Father Joe told Rose about the phone call from Marco. Rose turned pale. "Are you all right, Rose?" Ruth asked, patting her on the arm. "Oh, I've lost my place." Pretend that didn't happen. "Ever since the Thin Place closed, Father Joe and Sebastian and I have been wondering what this means for us. Will we start to age again? Have we stayed the same age for 380 years because of some connection with Albion, which has now been severed? Or is it a side effect of everything that happened? Every night I look in the mirror to see if there are any grey hairs. We've always kept ourselves safe. What has this Marco been told? Who else knows? If someone killed one of us, would we stay dead? Would we regenerate like Doctor Who? You're worried that something bad has happened to him, I said to her flatly. We need to go over to his flat, said Rose. We need to see for ourselves and talk to this Marco. I need to go to see if I can use my magic to find anything out. Perhaps we'll find a clue, I said. I felt a mixture of worry and excitement, but when I looked at Ruth and Rose, the worry grew. This presented us with a problem. We all knew that Rose hated going on the tube, and it would take hours to get there by bus. Mum and Dad had never owned a car. We had a shed full of bikes. Everyone looked at her. I know what you're all thinking. It doesn't take any magic spell. I'll go on the underground if Ruth and Miles go with me. For a moment, we remembered that she had shut herself away for a century and found much of the modern world disturbing. In the end, we arranged for Rose, Father Joe, Ruth and I to go over to Hackney after school on Wednesday. Just as we were about to leave our house, Dad turned up. He'd managed to get out of his college early, and he came too. And that is the end of the first chapter. Okay, well, I guess we'll find out what's happening over at Sebastian's flat next time. Join me then. Bye.